Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the ESS Hawking, her breath fogging the reinforced glass as she stared at the massive shapes floating in the void before her. The ancient vessels stretched for kilometers, their dark hulls painted with strange, swirling patterns that seemed to shift in the starlight. Humanity's first deep space expedition beyond the Kuiper Belt had expected to find ice, dust, and perhaps a few interesting asteroids. Instead, they'd discovered this, a fleet of ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Still admiring your junkyard, Commander? The holographic figure of Ambassador Cathrol appeared beside her, his crystalline form refracting the dim light of distant stars. The Galactic Council's representative made no effort to hide the contempt in his tone. I must say, your species' fascination with these derelicts is quaint. Sarah kept her expression neutral, though her fingers tightened imperceptibly on the datapad she held. 6 months had passed since the Council had graciously allowed humanity to join their interstellar community, and in that time they'd made it clear just how primitive they considered Earth's civilization to be. These ships are older than your civilization, Ambassador, she replied evenly. The fact that they're still structurally intact after 50,000 years suggests their builders knew a few things about engineering. Cathrol's crystalline form chimed with what passed for laughter among his kind. Indeed, and yet they're dead, while we endure. Perhaps there's a lesson there about the futility of excess ambition. He gestured at the fleet with a prismatic appendage. Your scientists can't even activate their basic systems. The Council has catalogued hundreds of such graveyards across the galaxy. Remnants of species that reached too far, too fast. Sarah said nothing, but her mind raced through the classified reports she'd reviewed just hours earlier. Let the Council believe what they wanted. They weren't the ones who discovered the quantum signature still pulsing deep within the ancient ship's cores. They hadn't detected the strange, DNA-like code sequences that seemed to respond to human brainwave patterns. Dr. Rivera's team is making progress, she said instead, keeping her voice carefully measured. We've already mapped 60% of the primary vessel's interior structure. Ah yes, you're Dr. Rivera. Cathrol's tone dripped with patronizing amusement. The one who insists these ships contain biological components. Really, Commander, you must understand how this looks to the Council. Your species barely understands quantum mechanics, and yet you claim insight into technologies that have puzzled our experts for millennia. A subtle vibration in Sarah's datapad drew her attention to an encrypted message. BREAKT RARUG in Lab 7. Come now. Her pulse quickened, but she maintained her composure. Perhaps, she suggested mildly, that's precisely why we're seeing things your experts missed. Fresh eyes, new perspectives. Or perhaps, Cathrol countered, you see what you wish to see. The Council has been generous in allowing you to study these ruins, but there are concerns about allowing primitive species access to potentially dangerous artifacts. Sarah turned to face the ambassador fully, her dark eyes reflecting the starlight. Primitive species. Is that how the Council views us? Would you prefer developing? Cathrol's crystalline form sparkled with what might have been genuine amusement. Commander, your people still burn chemical fuels to reach orbit. Your computers are binary. You haven't even mastered basic gravitational manipulation. The Council's assessment is generous. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Then I suppose there's no harm in letting us waste our time with these derelicts. Indeed. Cathrol's form began to fade. Just remember, Commander, some doors are better left closed. The Council's patience with your species' overreaching ambitions is not infinite. As the ambassador's hologram disappeared, Sarah's smile widened. She keyed her comm unit. Tell Dr. Rivera I'm on my way. And initiate Protocol Omega. We're about to have company. The journey to Lab 7 took her through the heart of the research vessel, past teams of scientists and engineers working round the clock to unlock the ancient fleet's secrets. The Council might see primitive tools and outdated methods, but Sarah saw human ingenuity at its finest. While alien civilizations relied on standardized quantum processors and artificial intelligence, humanity had taken a different approach, one that combined technology with human intuition and creativity. Lab 7's doors parted to reveal Dr. Elena Rivera standing before a floating sphere of what appeared to be liquid metal, her hands moving through the air as if conducting an invisible orchestra. The sphere responded to her movements, shifting and flowing in impossible patterns. "It's alive," Elena whispered, not taking her eyes off the sphere. "The ships, they're not just machines, Sarah. They're something else entirely. Something that's been waiting for the right kind of mind to wake them up." Sarah watched as patterns emerged in the liquid metal, complex fractals that seemed to mirror the neural patterns displayed on the lab's monitors. "How long until the Council realizes what we found?" "They won't," Elena said with quiet confidence. "Their sensors can't detect the quantum biological signatures. They're looking for technology they understand. Mechanical systems, computer cores, standard power sources. This." She gestured at the sphere, which had begun to pulse with an inner light. "This is something they've never seen before. Something that responds to human consciousness in ways their logic-based systems can't comprehend." Sarah thought of Kethral's dismissive attitude and felt a surge of satisfaction. "How many ships can we wake up?" "All of them." Elena's eyes gleamed with excitement. "The bioquantum network is still intact throughout the fleet. We just needed to learn their language, not their computer language, but their actual language. These ships weren't built to be controlled. They were built to be communicated with." As if in response to her words, the sphere expanded, projecting a holographic display of the entire fleet. One by one, tiny lights began to appear within the ancient vessels, like neurons firing in an awakening brain. "The Council thinks we're primitive because we don't think like they do," Sarah mused, watching the lights spread. "They've built their entire civilization on pure logic and standardized systems. And that's exactly why they'll never understand what we found here." Elena finished. "These ships weren't abandoned, Sarah. They were waiting for a species that could think differently, that could bridge the gap between logic and intuition." They stood in silence, watching as humanity's greatest discovery slowly came to life around them. Soon, the galaxy would learn that sometimes the most powerful forces aren't the most obvious ones, and that underestimating humanity's potential was a mistake they'd only make once. In the void outside, the ancient fleet stirred in its slumber, responding to the first compatible consciousness it had encountered in 50,000 years. The Council's sensors registered nothing unusual, but deep within the massive vessels, patterns of light began to dance like neurons firing in a vast, awakening mind. Humanity's next great leap forward wasn't going to be about raw technology. It was going to be about something far more fundamental: the power of human consciousness itself. Dr. Elena Rivera's neural interface headset hummed softly as she floated in the ancient ship's central chamber. Around her, walls that had been dormant for millennia pulsed with organic patterns of light, responding to the unique frequency of her thoughts. The chamber itself seemed to breathe, its biomechanical surfaces expanding and contracting in a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. Neural synchronization at 60%, her assistant, Dr. James Chen, reported from the monitoring station they'd set up. "The ship's quantum field is stabilizing." "Wait." He leaned forward, frowning at his displays. "Elena, are you seeing this? The molecular structure of the hull is actually rewriting itself." Elena smiled, keeping her eyes closed as she maintained the delicate mental connection. Through the neural interface, she could feel the vast consciousness of the vessel stirring. Not an artificial intelligence as the Council would understand it, but something far more organic. The ship wasn't just responding to commands. It was adapting, learning, evolving in response to human thought patterns. "That's exactly what it's supposed to do," she said softly. "These ships weren't built to be controlled, James. They were designed to form a symbiotic relationship with their crews. The more we communicate with them, the more they reshape themselves to match our neural architecture." A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing the massive vessel's internal structure. Sections that had been dark and lifeless for centuries were lighting up like synapses firing in a neural network. The ship wasn't just waking up, it was remembering how to think. Incoming transmission from the Council observation post, James announced, his voice tense. Ambassador Catherall is demanding an update on our archaeological survey. Elena allowed herself a small laugh. The Council's sensors, designed to detect conventional energy signatures and technological processes, remained blind to the quantum biological changes taking place throughout the fleet. They still saw only dead ships, ancient ruins being picked over by primitive humans. "Tell them we're conducting standard structural analysis," she replied. "Let them think we're still trying to understand basic hull compositions and power systems." The deception wasn't just about keeping their breakthrough secret, it was about buying time. Every day the Council underestimated them was another day for humanity to deepen their connection with the ancient fleet. Already, they discovered that each ship possessed its own distinct personality, its own way of interpreting and responding to human consciousness. Neural sync reaching 70%, James reported. "Elena, the ship's starting to share data. But this can't be right. According to these readings, it's not just accepting your neural patterns, it's actively modifying its own quantum structure to enhance the connection." Elena opened her eyes, taking in the swirling patterns of light that now filled the chamber. Through the neural interface, she could sense the ship's growing curiosity about its new partners. Unlike the rigid, hierarchical systems favored by the Council races, these vessels had been designed to evolve alongside their crews, creating a true fusion of organic and technological consciousness. The builders of this fleet understood something the Council never has, she explained, watching as new holographic displays bloomed around her. True advancement isn't about imposing order on chaos, it's about embracing complexity and adaptation. They created ships that could grow, learn, and change with their crews. James studied the streams of data flowing across his screens. The Council thinks in terms of control and standardization. Everything in their society is built on predictable, repeatable patterns. He gestured at the living light surrounding them. This would terrify them. Because they can't control it. Elena nodded. They can't quantify or standardize it. Every human mind interfaces with the ships differently, creating unique neural pathways and quantum configurations. It's exactly the kind of beautiful chaos they've spent millennia trying to eliminate from their civilization. A sudden alert drew their attention to the external sensors. A Council survey vessel had taken up position near one of the fleet's smaller ships, its scanning beams probing for conventional power signatures or technological systems. "They're growing suspicious," James warned. "Sooner or later, they're going to realize something's happening out here that their sensors can't explain." Elena watched the Council ship through the ancient vessel's enhanced perception systems. Where human eyes saw only a sleek metallic hull, the ship's quantum biological senses revealed the rigid patterns of thought and technology that defined Council engineering. Every system, every process was bound by strict protocols and predetermined responses. "Let them look," she said, a hint of defiance in her voice. "They're so convinced of their technological superiority that they can't imagine we found something they missed. Something that responds not to technical expertise, but to the very things they consider our weaknesses, our creativity, our adaptability, our embrace of uncertainty." Through the neural interface, she could feel the ship's growing strength, its systems awakening to possibilities that had lain dormant for 50,000 years. The Council had built their civilization on the principle that progress meant imposing order on chaos. But these ancient vessels represented a different path, one that saw chaos not as a force to be controlled, but as a source of infinite potential. "Begin Phase 2, Elena commanded, her voice steady as new holographic displays materialized around her. "It's time to wake up the rest of the fleet." Throughout the vast graveyard of ships, quantum pulses began to ripple from vessel to vessel, carrying patterns of human consciousness like seeds of revival. The Council's sensors registered nothing unusual, But deep within each ancient hull, something stirred. A recognition, a resonance, an awakening that would soon reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. As Alina floated in her chamber of living light, she smiled at the thought of Ambassador Cathral's dismissive attitudes. Soon, the Council would learn that true power didn't come from controlling chaos. It came from dancing with it. And humanity, with all its wonderful unpredictability, was about to teach them how to dance. The Council's emergency session chamber buzzed with agitation as Ambassador Cathral presented his report. Holographic representatives from 200 alien civilizations watched with growing concern as he displayed the latest sensor readings from the Human Research Stone. The energy signatures make no sense, Cathral admitted, his crystalline form flickering with frustration. For months, we detected nothing. Now, our instruments show quantum fluctuations throughout the derelict fleet, but they follow no recognizable patterns. High Counselor Vextra, a being of pure energy contained within an ornic mechanical shell, leaned forward. You assured us the humans were merely conducting primitive archaeological studies, that their technology was centuries behind our own. By all logical metrics, they are, Cathral protested. Their ships still use fusion drives. Their neural networks are basic binary systems. They haven't even mastered fundamental quantum engineering principles. And yet, the chamber's central display showed time-lapse footage of the ancient fleet. Strange pulses of light rippled across the massive hulls, defying conventional analysis. More disturbing were the structural changes, subtle alterations in the ship's molecular composition that seemed to happen spontaneously, without any visible technological intervention. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Zinra, her insectoid features clicking with disapproval, we were premature in allowing humans access to these artifacts. Their primitive nature makes them unpredictable, dangerous. Commander Sarah Chen, monitoring the council session through covered quantum taps, couldn't help but smile as she walked through the newly awakened corridors of the flagship. The walls hummed with bioluminescent patterns, responding to her presence like a living thing. Let them debate. Every hour they spent trying to understand what was happening through their rigid, logical frameworks was another hour for humanity to deepen their connection with the fleet. Dr. Rivera, she called over the neural link. How are we progressing with the merged consciousness trials? Alina's voice echoed in her mind, carried by the ship's quantum biological network. Better than we hoped. The ships aren't just accepting human neural patterns, they're actively seeking them out. It's like they were designed specifically for minds that could embrace uncertainty and improvisation. Sarah passed a group of engineers wearing neural interface headsets, their hands moving in practiced gestures as they communicated with the ship's systems. Where council races relied on standardized controls and predictable interfaces, humans had learned to interact with the ancient vessels through a combination of thought, intuition, and creative visualization. The council's getting nervous, Sarah reported. Their latest scans detected the quantum fluctuations, but they can't make sense of the patterns. Of course they can't. Alina's satisfaction was evident in her voice. They're looking for ordered sequences, logical progressions. These ships operate on an entirely different principle, neural chaos theory. The more unpredictable the thought patterns, the stronger the connection. A sudden alert pulsed through the ship's consciousness. Sarah accessed the external sensors, now far more sophisticated than anything the Council possessed. A fleet of Council warships had just emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Interesting timing, Sarah mused. They must be more worried than they're letting on. Through the quantum network, she could feel the ancient ships responding to the potential threat. Not with aggression, but with curiosity. The same kind of adaptive, creative response that characterized human thought patterns. Multiple Council vessels approaching, Alina reported. Their weapons are powered down, but their scanning systems are at maximum intensity. They're trying to brute force their way to understanding what we've achieved. Sarah watched through the ship's enhanced perception as the Council fleet took up formation around the ancient vessels. Their ships were impressive, the pinnacle of logical, ordered engineering. Every system optimized, every response predetermined by countless calculations and protocols. Let them scan, she decided. They're looking for technology they understand. They can't detect the quantum biological network because they've never conceived of consciousness itself as a technology. Deep within the ancient flagship's core, Alina worked with a team of scientists to accelerate their mastery of the bioquantum systems. Holographic displays showed the neural patterns of hundreds of human crew members merging with the ship's consciousness, creating something entirely new. A hybrid awareness that combined human creativity with the vast processing power of the ancient vessels. The ships are teaching us as much as we're teaching them, Alina observed. Every human mind connects differently, creates unique neural pathways. The Council sees that as a flaw, too chaotic, too unpredictable. But these ships, they thrive on that chaos. In the Council chamber, the debate grew more heated. We should seize the fleet, Councillor Zinra insisted. These humans clearly lack the wisdom to handle such powerful artifacts responsibly. With all due respect, Councillor, Cathral's voice held a note of uncertainty. We don't even understand what they've done. Our sensors can't penetrate the quantum fluctuations. We can't even determine if the ships are truly active, or if these energy patterns are simply random decay phenomena. High Councillor Vextra's energy form pulsed with irritation. Then we will send in troops to occupy the vessels. If the humans resist, it will simply prove they cannot be trusted with advanced technology. Sarah received the Council's decision through their quantum taps and smiled. Alina, are the neural defense systems ready? Ready and eager, Alina replied. The ships have already adapted our brainwave patterns into quantum shield configurations. The Council's weapons literally won't be able to comprehend what they're trying to hit. As the Council fleet moved into position, humanity prepared to demonstrate just how powerful primitive thinking could be. The ancient ships stirred with anticipation, their quantum biological systems resonating with the creative chaos of human consciousness. Soon, the galaxy would learn that true advancement wasn't about controlling the universe. It was about learning to dance with its infinite possibilities. The first Council boarding shuttles approached the ancient fleet with precise, programmed confidence. Their sensors probed for access points, seeking standardized docking protocols that had been outdated for 50,000 years. Inside the flagship's neural nexus, Sarah Chen watched through the ship's quantum-enhanced perception as the Council forces practiced their perfectly ordered invasion. They're still searching for conventional entry points, she observed, sharing the vision through the neural network. They haven't realized the entire hull is now a living interface. Alina's consciousness brushed against hers through the ship's quantum field. Should we show them how we say hello? Sarah smiled. Let's give them a proper introduction. As the Council shuttles drew near, the ancient vessel's hull began to shift. Not with the mechanical precision the Council expected, but with fluid, organic movement. Sections that appeared solid to conventional scanners simply phased out of normal space, creating passages that defied physical laws the Council held sacred. Impossible. The Council commander's transmission crackled across all frequencies. The hull structure is violating fundamental conservation principles. All units, hold position. But it was too late. The ancient ship's quantum biological systems, guided by human creativity, had already adapted to the Council's presence. Ethereal tendrils of energy reached out, gently enveloping the surprised shuttles. Not as weapons, but as curious appendages, examining these rigid vessels and their even more rigid crews. Through the neural link, Sarah felt the ship's almost childlike amusement. The Council forces, with all their advanced technology, were like children playing with wooden blocks, unable to comprehend that the rules they knew were just a tiny subset of reality's possibilities. Multiple Council vessels powering up weapons, Alina reported, her consciousness dancing through the quantum network. They're falling back on programmed responses. When faced with something they don't understand, they try to destroy it. Let's show them why that won't work, Sarah suggested. As energy beams lanced out from the Council ships, the ancient vessel's quantum field shifted. The attacks didn't impact against shields or armor. They simply ceased to exist, their energy patterns disrupted by consciousness-guided quantum fluctuations that the Council's weapons couldn't comprehend. In the Council emergency chamber, panic was setting in. "The humans aren't just studying the ships," Cithril reported, his crystalline form vibrating with distress. "They bonded with them. The quantum signatures we detected, they're not mechanical activations. They're synaptic patterns. Human brain waves merged with ancient technology." High Counselor Vextra's energy form pulsed with disbelief. "Impossible. Their minds are too primitive, too chaotic. These ships were built by a civilization far more advanced than humanity." Or perhaps, a new voice interrupted, "They were built for minds exactly like ours." The Council chamber's holographic displays shimmered as Elena Rivera's image appeared, projected through quantum channels that bypassed all known security protocols. But it wasn't just Elena. Her consciousness was visibly merged with the ancient ship systems, creating a hybrid being that defied the Council's understanding of both biology and technology. "Your civilization has achieved wonderful things," Elena acknowledged, her form shifting with patterns of energy that mirrored human neural activity. "But in pursuing perfect order, you forgot something fundamental about the universe. Chaos isn't a flaw to be eliminated. It's the source of all creativity, all evolution, all true advancement." Through the quantum network, Sarah felt the rest of the ancient fleet awakening fully, responding to the collective consciousness of their human crews. Each ship developed its own unique personality, shaped by the minds connected to it. Yet all were linked in a vast neural dance that no purely logical system could comprehend. "The beings who built these ships," Elena continued, addressing the stunned Council, "understood something you forgot. They didn't create vessels to be controlled. They created partners, meant to grow and evolve with their crews, and they left them waiting for a species that could truly understand that potential." "This is unprecedented," Counselor Zinra chittered. "These humans have corrupted the artifacts with their primitive thought patterns." "No," Elena corrected gently. "We've restored them to their true purpose. Every human mind connects differently, creates unique neural pathways. What you see as a weakness, these ships recognize as infinite potential. They don't want crews who think in straight lines. They want dancers who can improvise." As if to demonstrate, the ancient fleet began to move, not with the rigid precision of Council vessels, but with fluid, organic grace. The massive ships flowed around each other in impossible patterns, their quantum fields merging and separating like the thoughts of a vast, shared consciousness. Sarah felt the Council's fear and confusion rippling through the quantum field. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that progress meant moving from chaos to order. Now they faced something that turned that assumption upside down. A technology that grew stronger through unpredictability, that evolved through the very randomness they had spent millennia trying to eliminate. "We don't want conflict," Sarah broadcast to the Council fleet. "But if you force one, you'll learn that your logical weapons and predetermined tactics can't affect what they can't predict. These ships don't just respond to human consciousness, they amplify it. Every creative thought, every intuitive leap, every irrational but brilliant human impulse becomes part of their operating system." Through the neural network, she felt the ancient vessel's eagerness to demonstrate their capabilities. Not with violence, but with a display of possibilities that would shatter the Council's understanding of what technology could be. "The question isn't whether we're ready for this technology," Elena told the Council. "The question is whether you're ready to accept that true advancement means embracing the chaos, not fighting it. These ships have chosen humanity precisely because we know how to dance with uncertainty." As if in response, the quantum fields around the ancient fleet began to pulse with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space, creating patterns that made the Council's most advanced sensors short out in confusion. The age of rigid order was ending. The dance of chaos was about to begin. The space between the fleets shimmered with quantum possibilities. The Council armada hung in perfect formation, their ships arranged in mathematically precise patterns that reflected their builders' dedication to order. Facing them, the ancient vessels moved like a shoal of bioluminescent creatures, their patterns organic and unpredictable, guided by the merged consciousness of their human crews. Final warning from the Council, Sarah announced through the neural network. They're demanding we cease our corruption of protected artifacts and submit to their authority. Through the quantum field, she felt Elena's amusement ripple across the fleet. They still think these ships are just machines. Should we show them what a true partnership between human and vessel can do? Sarah gave the mental command that initiated what they'd named the quantum dance. Across the ancient fleet, hundreds of human minds synchronized with their ship's consciousness, not to impose control, but to suggest possibilities. The result defied physics as the Council understood it. The massive vessels began to move, but not through conventional space. Their quantum biological systems, amplified by human creativity, allowed them to exist in multiple states simultaneously. They flowed through dimensions that the Council's sensors couldn't even detect, appearing and disappearing like thoughts in a vast cosmic mind. Impossible. Cathral's transmission carried genuine fear. Their maneuvers violate every known law of space-time. No, Elena responded, her consciousness merging deeper with the flagship's systems. We're just writing new laws. The universe has always been stranger and more wonderful than your rigid equations suggest. To demonstrate, she guided her vessel through a series of transformations that made the Council's most advanced scientists question their sanity. The ship didn't just move, it evolved, its structure flowing like liquid thought, each change guided by the beautiful chaos of human imagination. The Council fleet opened fire, their weapons following perfect targeting algorithms. But you couldn't hit what you couldn't predict, and the ancient ships moved with the randomness of inspiration itself. Energy beams passed through space where vessels had been microseconds before, or struck quantum fields that transformed the attacks into harmless light shows. Remember, Sarah broadcast to her crews, we're not here to fight. We're here to dance. Understanding flowed through the neural network. Each human pilot began to improvise, working with their ship's consciousness to create patterns that no tactical computer could anticipate. The ancient fleet moved like a vast, abstract ballet, each motion flowing into the next with organic grace. High Counselor Vextra's voice crackled with frustration. This is madness. No technological system can function with such chaos. That's where you're wrong, Elena replied. These ships weren't built to be technology as you understand it. They were created to be extensions of consciousness itself, and human consciousness. It thrives on chaos. To prove her point, she initiated the final movement of their quantum dance. The ancient fleet's neural network expanded, creating a vast field of shared consciousness that encompassed both ships and crews. Within this field, human thoughts became reality. Imagination shaped space itself. The Council watched in stunned silence as the fleet transformed. Ships merged and separated like drops of mercury, their quantum fields interweaving in patterns that reflected the infinite creativity of the human mind. Each vessel became a thought given form, each movement a dream made real. We understand now. Cathral's voice had lost its arrogance. These ships, they weren't abandoned. They were waiting. Yes, Sarah confirmed, waiting for partners who could see beyond the obvious, who could embrace uncertainty as a source of strength, who could take logical impossibility and turn it into beautiful reality. Through the quantum network, she felt the ancient vessels' joy at finally fulfilling their true purpose. They weren't weapons or tools. They were instruments in a cosmic symphony, and humanity had finally provided the music they'd been waiting for. Your civilization has achieved amazing things, Elena addressed the Council. You've brought order to chaos, stability to uncertainty. But in doing so, you forgot something essential. The universe isn't a machine to be controlled. It's a dance to be joined. The ancient fleet moved one final time, but now their motion had purpose beyond mere display. The quantum fields generated by their dance began to affect reality itself, creating a space where the rigid boundaries between thought and matter, consciousness and technology, order and chaos simply cease to exist. This is what these ships were built for, Sarah explained. Not to impose order on the universe, but to explore its infinite possibilities. Not to follow predetermined paths, but to create new ones. Not to conquer chaos, but to transform it into art. In the council chamber, representatives of 200 civilizations watched in silence as their understanding of the universe transformed. The humans hadn't just awakened ancient technology. They'd discovered a whole new way of existing within reality itself. We offer you a choice, Olena's voice carried across all frequencies. Continue to fight against chaos, to impose your order on a universe that defies it, or join us in learning to dance with uncertainty. These ships aren't weapons or tools. They're teachers, waiting to show us all how to see beyond the boundaries of what we think is possible. The ancient fleet hung in space, their quantum fields pulsing with possibilities. They were no longer derelicts or artifacts. They were proof that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't order or technology or even knowledge. It was the ability to embrace chaos, to adapt, to create, to imagine. And humanity, with all its wonderful, illogical, beautiful chaos, had finally brought that truth back to the stars.